Once again, welcome everybody. Thank you for choosing channel 3. I know that we're all looking forward jumping in fantasy land or Fantasia land these days, but due to Corona and things that happen, most conferences got cancelled. So APEX Connect did too. But I'm pleased that I have opportunity to be part of online version of it. So thank you. To Debug and everybody, the team that's organized this for us. Before I go in, my name is Lino Schildenfeld, and today I'll be talking about dynamic actions. Point being, I'll briefly touch on why it's important very soon. Before I jump into it, I usually put latest and the greatest news. That this is something that I couldn't skip, which is, I don't know if you upgraded to 21, but in the end of April, APEX team announced that APEX 21 was available. So I'm hoping you're busy upgrading your apps. Agenda for today. We'll talk about dynamic actions that I said, and then my idea is to give you everything you need to start developing and coding dynamic actions within your APEX applications, right? And the point is, I'm trying to make you understand how they all work. So that's what we try to do now. These are just some of the things that we're going to go through, and most of these we'll be doing through demos and examples. So just hold on for a sec. Before I go in, just a little bit about myself. I started developing with APEX in just early 2007, and since then it's been Oracle, and pretty much since 2008 I've been specializing pretty much working exclusively on Oracle Application Express, and versions that I started doing, or when I started working, was 3.1, 3.2, so I go way back in these days. These are some of the teams that you may recognize that I worked with or worked for, and today I consult on the Skill Builders team. Except for that, I try to help Australian Oracle user group with APEX things. So I try to organize webinars for them. I try help them organize conference content and stuff like that, but mostly on APEX side. And pretty much I'm present on Twitter as well, LinkedIn. If you need to reach out, feel free, send me an email or text message, and I'm always pretty much free and available to answer any of your questions.
Lino, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you share the slides in the presenting mode. Maybe you can switch it to can see more from the slide. That would be perfect.
One sec.
Maybe you have to check the display settings.
One sec, let me check. Sorry about that. Audience view. So you're seeing, no, so you're seeing a different screen, sorry. 1 sec.
No worries.
If I can, I'll try sharing again. So if I do one thing, right, let me retweak.
Can you please check the display settings?
Yeah, I'm trying to change that. It lets me pick what I want, but it's giving me the different screens. Audience view, display settings.
Yeah, in the top of the PowerPoint slide, there's display setting with the three buttons in the middle one.
Yeah, no, but
no,
I think
on the top.
Display settings.
Yes. And there you can swap it.
Yeah,
and now we can see the full slide.
All good. I was trying to get that because I'll bring this over as well, because you were saying a different. So all good like that. We can do it like that. So I'll move this over. Is that better now?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, good. Sorry about that. So where was I? One sec. All good. So I'm on dynamic action frequent questions. So pretty much along the years that I've trained and mentored people and worked with dynamic actions, these are some of the questions that popped along, and I will be going more deep with the one that are marked with the stars. Some of the others we'll just briefly mention and as we go through. All good. So the point is, I mean, what I always ask my colleagues and people when we develop apps is why are we here? What's the main goal for like us as developers, right? And the point is we want to make our apps rich in experience, engaging and responsive, and it's all to deliver to our end users, right? Because end users are the ones who are going to be using the app, and so today we'll try to address how we can use dynamic actions to help us do that a little bit better, right? Nowadays it's all about user experience, right? And the biggest problem that we have as developers is that our users are they have experience with different apps now because they're exposed with apps everywhere, like mobile phone, tablets, desktop screens, other workplaces and stuff. And making a good, successful app is not easy nowadays because everybody expects like fast loading times, rich and responsive interaction, that it's responsive on different screens. And it's not just about making it functional anymore. That's I think what was problem with Apex before was you would get it to be functional, but people would lack that feeling of nice and something modern, right? And with Universal Team now and work that Shakib and the team are doing, I think we're improving on that level, especially in the past few years. Things that we can do to improve that is we can style it with CSS, like we can style our websites and Apex pages with CSS. We can be clever and sort of spend time on design, which is I think equally important. And then there's a little bit that we can do with JavaScript, or equally as much as in JavaScript. And that's the part we're going to be concentrating today, because dynamic actions is pretty much nothing else but JavaScript. So we're in that area, right? Where I'm taking you now is like I want to strip everything off. So like if you're new to Apex, if you're new to coding, if you've never seen anything along these lines, I want to take you back to where it all starts, how it's all connected, and then we're going to see how that progresses and merges into Apex and how the Apex does it, right? If I share my other screen, one sec. Matthias, can you confirm that you are seeing my browser now? Or are you still seeing
Yes,
the...
we can see the
Perfect, yeah.
browser with the
Just so that...
Office theme.
Perfect. Why I talked about user experience, I mean, you can still find websites that look like this, right? And if you remember, and if you used to develop these like 10, 15 years ago, some of the websites that I built look like this as well, right? And the bottom line is we need to have a basic understanding of like core HTML here, and you'll see quickly why. So if we inspect the elements on this page and using your browser, like dev tools in your browsers, you will quickly see that that there's just some standard tags that every HTML has, like a website, and that also applies to Apex. And in a second you'll see why this is important and why I'm taking you with that. Every website, as you've seen, has tags, and browsers for us generate something that's called DOM, or they have a representation of our website in a tree-like structure. And why is that important for us is because there are languages like JavaScript that we can use on a browser that we can modify what users see and what is on the page. We can modify the content, which we can modify this CSS styles. And the best one is that we can react on elements that are on that page. So we can recreate it dynamically, plus we can react on anything we see on a page. So let's have a look. So we had to look at that example, and that was just a slide to showcase. So this is a inspection of one of APEX pages that I've used. And as you can see, it's similar to the other one, which was pretty basic. It's just you have tags, and the more familiarity you have with these tags, it's going to be easier to follow what I'll be talking to then. And in general, the more knowledge you get about these basics, then it's going to be easy to follow and work in APEX in general, right? Because it's a web tool and something that you have to pick up as you go, right? How do you open? I'm just going to say no. That how do you open these tools is if you open your website and just do F12 or Control R in Chrome, and then you get your inspection tool. I usually prefer using Firefox, so this is a print screen from Firefox. All good. Now that we've touched that was basis of HTML websites are nothing but simple like HTML tags. That's the bottom line. Okay, so if we take a ride on paperclip, for example, and I showed you how I inspected the page, that's simply that. If I do it on one of the APEX pages, you'll see that it's exactly this. So I can do inspector element, and you'll see that there's like way more code. So if I expand, yep, you'll see when it's expanded, it's and the best thing with APEX is that because it's a low-code framework, we don't have to worry about what HTML it's generating because it's out of the box. So I don't have to write HTML. So don't worry on that side. Where I'm taking you now is I prepared the demo. Is what I wanted to show you. I have a basic HTML here, which is just set up. So I have a HTML, which is the root element. Then I have a head, I have a body, and within the body, I just have a dummy table, right? There's nothing else to it. This is the whole page. And on the right-hand side here, that's what's the output, right? And how would we now do a simple dynamic action on it? How would we, so I will inject here, just uncomment my and do run to get the input field, right? So nothing that I've done is, oops, sorry. Nothing that I've done here is I have a div and I have input and I gave it an ID here. And what I want to do is if I type in something, let's say I want to get an alert. So how would we achieve something on a page? This doesn't have anything to do with APEX. So we have total just HTML, pure basic HTML. There's something that's called web APIs, which allows us to do certain things and like do these stuff as well. And so I'm using document get element by ID. I'm using here my ID, which is my text box, and then I'm attaching a listener that's going to happen on a blur. So when I'm leaving the field, and then I'm going to be triggering. I defined an event that's going to say alert changed. So basic of this is if I change my field here, I attach the listener to that field that's going to trigger an event and just say, okay, something happened, changed. So that's the bottom line, how it all works. This is the core of everything, right? And if I go back to my slides, this is exactly what we did, right? We have an event on the page that I triggered by changing that, and then we put a listener on that field on an element on the page, and then we told it what he's going to do after that. What action are we going to execute after we caught that something was happening? We can do a comparison to database triggers, so it's similar because they allow us to respond to events that happen either in a browser or a framework, or maybe as I showed you, they could be user-driven. I like to think of it as like event managers, because managers are popular these days. So you have something that's handling your event management. So you have events and you want to handle it in a certain way. And Apex has this framework built in, and they're called dynamic actions in Apex, right? Why I love them? Because they're declarative, and we'll create our first Apex dynamic action now to showcase what are the differences and why everything that I've showed you, pretty much you can forget. It's just the knowledge how it's connected. That's what the point was of the first 2-3 slides, is how HTML works, and now we'll see how Apex is doing this all for us out of the box, right? Going back to my, so I'll close this because we don't need that anymore. I'll close these nice websites. Okay, all good. So I'm gonna go and do my first demo here. I'm hoping you can all see my browser and the page. I'll just zoom a little bit out so you get a better feeling of what we're doing. So nothing but interactive report. We're gonna open a form, and let's say we want to do something when a job changes. So how would we go about it? So I'm gonna edit the page, and so these are the basics of what we do for. So there's many ways how you can do it from right click. So I'm picking a job here because that's my field. I can do right click and say create dynamic actions. That's the most common one. And now there's like properties for this dynamic action. So first I need to give it a name. So I'm going to say on job change alert. It's important to give it some meaningful name, because imagine that you're going to end up having pages with 20, 30, whatever dynamic actions on it. If you don't give it a useful name, something that's going to be descriptive enough so you know which one you're referring to and what it's doing, it's going to be hard to track these down. So that's the first thing. The name sequence is not important, so I can hide it. And then we're defining that triggering listener. So what are we going to do, or when are we going to do it? So we can do on a change. There's many here options that we can select from. Some are related to more like components in Apex, like calendar or faceted search or interactive grids. But for starts, I'm just going to concentrate and pick change. So I want to change. I want to listen for change. I want to listen it on an item. As you can see, I can select different elements on a page that I can work with. So in this simple instance, I'll just use items. I'll pick an item which is job, and it was pre-selected because I've done right click on it, and I can set some conditions on it. In this case, I won't do any conditions, and conditions we have client side and server side. So that's important to remember. They don't do the same things, so just keep an eye on it. And once I've defined my event and my selected element, now I need to define one true action. So that's a minimum. So each dynamic action needs to have one true action. And in this case, as you can see, actions, there are many things that you can do. Like we can clear, close, disable, refresh regions. We can set values. We can execute some Java or PL SQL codes, which we'll do later on. And in this case, I'll just do simple alert. So I'm saying, hello. All good. So if I say save and run my page, so we've done it on a job. If I change the job and I say analyst, we get that trigger out. Perfect. As you've seen, everything that we've done and that I've showed you was declarative, and that's the beauty of Apex. That's what where the power of this lies, right? We've defined, so on the right hand side, I had the change event. That's like I'm defining what's my listener. So what am I listening for? And then I said I'm listening that on what element, because I need that. These are two important things that I need to tell it. What's the event, and then what's the element that's happening on. The next one was I could set condition to execute or not, and that's optional. So we saw client and server side conditions. and then we had true and false actions. So if we set the condition to be applied to a dynamic action, then we have an option to create a false action. So let's say I say trigger only when job equals to salesman, and then I could do false, otherwise do something else. That's how this condition and true and false are connected to each other. And optional, again, we have something that says, I'll just show that. So page load and a scope. So if I go back to my dynamic action, so I have each true or each action has ability for us to say, is it going to be triggered on initialization, which is does it trigger on a page load? Most of the times you have to sort of be wary of whether or not you want to have this or not. So that's where you trigger, where you set it on. All good. We're gonna be taking off now, a little bit speeding up. We have 20 minutes or so more. This is if you compare, so if you were lucky to work in 3.1 or 3.2, just the simplest cascading LOVs. If you wanted to implement, left hand side would be something that you would have to code, where on the right hand side is how we do it in 2019. We pretty much just stayed the same in 2020, right? Why I'm bringing up this question now is I think this is one of the most critical parts for you, like especially people who are new to APEX, to understand how this thing works. You've seen that APEX and any website consists of tags and elements. These tags, if I show, so I'll just do that one. So let's say I do inspect that one just to show you that. So we'll see that even behind that button, you see there's a button tag and has some sort of ID, there's some sort of class and stuff. And where is that hitting us is because understanding where you want to trigger your element, you need to be able to tell that dynamic action how or where to trigger it, where that element is. So you need to find a way how to select that element. So we're going to talk about selectors a little bit, because I think they're equally important. And what I mean by selectors, just let me open my example for selectors. So let's say, for example, I have a report on a page. I'm hoping you can see it by now. It's just a classical report. There's nothing special to it. It's just a simple query. So if I go edit this page, okay, because we don't care what we've done on the other one. So it's, if I show you the query, that there's no secrecy, just select from departments and employees, and there's nothing major to it. And now challenge is, how do we react to any element of this page? Like let's say I want to click on a e-name and I want to get the value of the clerk. As you can see, it's triggering here. So if I do Lino, it's going to pick up Lino. If I do Jones, it should pick up Jones. Perfect, but it's not that common. So if I had a button or if I had a page item, that would be an easy. You would right click on it, say on a change, do something, but this is not common. Like, and if I inspect this element, you'll see, so I have a, it's a standard table, as you can see. So we have a table here that APEX generated for us. We have a line that's header, and then inside we have a body, and inside of the body, we have these rows. So each of these, and each row consists of a TD, like that's a tag for a column in a table, and we see what APEX generated for us, so we can use this. So that's why inspecting these elements is, or know how to do this, is equally important, because this gives you a clue how you can actually pick this element and listen. Right? So you can see here that I have something that's listening on this event, and let's see what dynamic action I created. So if I inspect my e-name where I'm listening, you wouldn't find any dynamic actions here. There's no static IDs, there's no classes, there's nothing. But if I open my dynamic action tab, I see there's a dynamic action says e-name clicked. Let's see and inspect a little bit more. So I'll just hide things that we don't need. Again, there's a click event that we're listening for. Now it's, so we didn't go for items or column, we went with the Jquery Selector. And this is just one type of selector that we can, like a custom one, and you can use JavaScript expression, and I will I will touch base on the other one just in a second on a slide that I'm going to show you. But here, what I'm telling it is find me a TD, which is a tag within that document of my HTML, and then find like where headers equal to ename. So he's going to listen for the column clicks where headers are ename. So if I go back to my here, if I map that back, so each of my rows, you'll see that it has a TD and then it has header equals to ename. So that's where the beauty and the strength of this selectors comes in. And after that, all I'm doing is, okay, I want to alert, I'm doing a custom JavaScript code here, which is nothing too crazy, adding text clicked on, and then I'm passing in a text of a click element. So if you need help with these things, there's very good explanation under the help where you can see what this triggering element actually is giving you back, and then you can pick up its properties or values and stuff. All good. I'm hoping that made sense. As I don't know if you mentioned at the beginning, if you have questions, just put them in, and then we'll address it as we come to an end. To sum up, these selectors, they are probably one of the most important things for you to understand. Is if we can pick element to do an action on, then we can do anything on any page in Apex. Is it a button? Is it the menu? Is it something that we build custom? How do we do that? We've seen, so we can do DOM IDs like hash my ID, which you've probably heard of, which is jQuery way of selecting something that has my ID for static ID, or we can use a class which is dot and a class name notation. We can go outside of these just classes and IDs. We can do HTML tag like button that you've seen, or just an input field. So I can select an input for in Apex. Jquery Selector would be input. I can go a little bit beyond, which is I can do div alerts and then say parent, where I'm listening for the parent of an element, which is div.alert. So if I have a div class, a div element with a class alert, and then I'm going to find its element and be listening on that. Sweet. Taking a step forward is, okay, so we can listen for any elements. We know how the web page works. We're picking elements that we want. We're building dynamic actions. What happens if it stops working? Okay. All good. Taking you back to my site. I have an example. 101 debug. So again here, before I do anything, I'm gonna inspect element just to open my browser tools, or dev tools. So just let's see what's gonna happen. It says try changing bonus just to guide me here. So if I do something that's silly, and I say, okay, you see here we have this exclamation mark which has one or more errors occurred, and what it means is there's something that broke your JavaScript action. So most likely it's going to be your dynamic action, but how would we get to a point to understand what happened? First step is you open your developer tools. As I did that before, I can see that there's a dynamic action file, but it doesn't give me the name, right? And it says number is not defined. Okay, so how do I get more info? So first step is enable debug. Peter Ragonich had an awesome debugging session, so if you need help with debugging, I can recommend you that one. So I turn on debug, and I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to be triggering the same error. Okay, so error is there. Just wanted to see what happened now. In my developer tools in console, now I get the name of dynamic action. So that helped me tremendously. Right? If I had 50 of them on this page, I only have one, so it's going to be easy to find which one triggered. But if I had 50, knowing the name of dynamic action, the trigger is like first most important step. Okay, and then we have an error as well. Sometimes in browsers, so if I extend this, you can select what type of error you want to filter. So sometimes errors and warnings are here, so you can turn that off and you wouldn't see it, right? So just keep an eye on that. You need to turn it on as well. All good. Now that I know what dynamic action triggered, I know I can go and inspect the let's do a quick edit just to take me on that field directly. Let's see what's happening underneath the hood. So that's the thing that triggered my and I'm looking for dynamic action. Usually I would go in here, find the name, because that was the name listed under my developer tools. It says bonus change calculate outcome. Perfect, I know that's that one. Let's see what happens. So first of all, we have to see when it's happening. So it's on the change of bonus. Okay, perfect. I know that bonus is the one to blame. If I need to sort of trace down what value it used and stuff. And let's see what it's doing. I see I have a set value here. So I'm doing a set value as an action. And then I'm setting and using a JavaScript expression. Okay, so there's many. I can do static assignment, JavaScript expression, SQL statements, PL SQL bodies, and dialog items. This is just a way how we can, one of the ways how we can set these values, and I have affected element set to commission. So point is, when my bonus changed, I want to calculate the new commission. And what I try to do here, so I'll open this up a little bit. So you can see I have a number function, and then I am referencing a triggering element value, and I'm multiplying by a value of a salary that I'm trying to make as a number. And as you can see, so again, I have an error that says number is not defined. So I obviously use the function here, which is a number that I haven't used. So it's an external JavaScript library, but unfortunately on this page, just for the sake of demo, I haven't included that library, so I'm getting an error. Perfect. So debugging, as we can see, so first thing is turn on the debug, because since 19.1, the description side of it, it's giving you more details in a developer console. So that's the first step, the crucial info there. Sometimes it may happen that you don't get anything in there, which is hard to believe, but sometimes it does happen. And then usually the next one to look at is the network tab. Because you can see, for example, if you had a JavaScript Ajax action that was trying to fetch data, maybe you did something wrong there, so you can see the network tab that either didn't do right parameters or you didn't get anything back right. Perfect. And so we wrapping this a little bit, like we're coming to an end. The final is like, okay, we're looking at the website. So it's a browser, it's a client data. I'm a client, I have my PC now in front of me. I'm interacting with the website. So it's happening on the client side. But what happens if I want to, how do we pass the values that I'm interacting with as a user back to my database? So that's the whole point of why we have dynamic action. Okay, we can do some things like alerts and stuff that don't have and don't carry any data, but usually it's to enrich this feeling of that everything you do has some sort of button reacts, and then something happens, you get a message, there's a processing logo going on, you process that, then you'll alert back. So there's bits that you can add to your page to make it look seamless and intuitive, right? Now we're digging into how is this happening. Okay, going back to my demos page. Perfect. What I prepared here is, this is the most common example that you're going to see. It's even part of simple dynamic action application as well. We have a report, and instead of having a pop-up, so you would usually click on the employee number, you would get a pop-up form. You would delete on that form. But what if I don't want to do that? I have a report, and I want to react on a. I want to make this button, and I want to delete a record, for example. How would we achieve something along like this, right? I'm going to do no debug just so I don't make my pages be slow. All good. So quickly jumping into what's happening. I have a report. Again, I want to show you that it's simple report again, same as usual. So first step is, how do I, so I wanna delete, let's say, record number 800, test 8. How would I pass this 800 So I have to have some sort of ID that I'm going to use to delete the record. That's like basic of basis, right? But how do I connect that to my delete button and then actually make database delete that record? Okay, so there's a few bits. First one is, how do I make that look like a button? So what I've done is I have a query that returns an ID, which is just an emp node, but I call it an ID just for the sake of being different. I make it a link, and I can hide all of this. I can hide all of this because it's all unimportant. And then I need to define what my link elements are. Okay, so I just said it's a type of URL, but you don't do anything. So I'm just doing a hash. And then what is this now? Okay, so to quickly give you an intro of what that is, apex oracle.com/ut. It's an awesome library of you see everything that Universal Team can do at this moment, and something that I usually very often is button builder. Okay, so you can generate the look and feel of your buttons here without doing anything on your page, right? So to zoom out a little bit, I'm going to say I want an icon only. See how the top changes. So my button already changed to my to what I want. I can change an icon. So if I pick any other, it doesn't matter. So I have my new icon. And then what I usually do, I do simple. And the beauty of it, Apex generate, or this site generates for you what Apex is expecting to get into in these attributes, right? So it says link text. If we go back, oops, sorry. If we go back, we have a link text here. So all I've done is copy and paste it this here into that field. And same I did for my link attribute. So I copied and paste this back into my attributes here. And now I'm adding a little bit. So you've seen these are all the same classes. That's same what the builder button generated for me. And now I added a class. This is my particular class, delete me. And I added something that's where I'm defining that element has an ID, and I'm passing in value from my query. Perfect. And now I know that I can use this class to trigger my dynamic action. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm defining a click action. When I click on an element, I'm using a Jquery Selector here, and I'm using a class selector. So referring back to my slides and how you can select an element, this is using a class selector. So I'm using a Jquery, and then I'm using this as a class which I've defined on my column. Perfect. Now I can see that it's triggering. And to go back, so what we want to do is confirm, like, do you want to yes or no? Do you want to continue? And usually, how we would pass in the value for starters is I would take it from here, and then I would put it in a hidden field, for example. So on this page, if you look into it, I have a hidden field which is page 18 emp now, and I'm going back to my dynamic action. So first I do confirm action. Are you sure you want to continue? Perfect. Then what I'm doing is I'm taking that value that I'm sending in, and this is important. So first, one way how we can do it, we configured an ID of my link, passed in an employee number, and then this is how I'm picking that ID up. So this is where I'm getting my 800 back. And all I'm saying is, okay, put that in an item, which is emp now. Sweet. Doing the next step. Once I have that in a page number element, I can do anything I want. I usually don't have commits. This is a leftover of copying, but so you can update something, do whatever, and then eventually what it's doing is deleting an element from a page. Oh, from a table, sorry. All good for the sake of it. And then what it does is I want to refresh. So I want to pick my region. I want to refresh my report because I lost that record, so I don't need it anymore. Refresh my region and say, okay, I've deleted that row. So let's see if that's going to work. So if I delete my 800, okay, do you want to continue? Perfect. Boom. And as you can see, there's no record test 8 anymore because I've deleted it. So that was one way. Perfect. So let's inspect what's other ways. So I prepared 3 ways. There are probably many ways how you can achieve the same, but these are variation on how I'm passing in data from a client into my PL SQL code, right? Same here. I have a confirm. I want to pass in. Again, I have a hidden element on a page. Page 8. So page 30 has a page 30 emp. No, it's similar stuff. The only key is again, same query, nothing specific. Again, I have an ID that is a link. Same way I'm defining how my link works, and then in here I've done something different. So I don't know if I do this. One sec, if I zoom in, you'll see here. So instead of just doing ID, I'm doing something with date ID. This is very handy if let's say if you have 1 or 2 elements that you want to pass, like values from your screen, like from your report that you want to pass in. So I can do ID, or I can do emp name or whatever. So I can use data attributes of my link to do this. I won't go into what data attributes are at the moment. If you Google it, it's like something that I've defined on my HTML element, and I can give it any name I want. So I gave it an ID here, and then I can fetch and use these values that I'm passing in later in my JavaScript. So let's see how we do it. So trigger will be the same. So it's delete me class. So there's going to be one click element on a delete me selector. So Jquery Selector with dot delete me to pick up the class. Same, I have a confirm action. I have a set value here. And this is the key. So if I open this, so I don't have this triggering element .id anymore. So in order to get data attributes, there's a different way how you can access that ID value, right? And I achieve this by doing this, right? You don't have to write this. I'll make this web like app available so you can see all of these examples by yourself at your time, right, and leisure. And then once I get that ID, I pass it in and save it into P30 emp now, and then later on it's used same way in update, delete from a table, refresh my report and region, and then execute. Okay, perfect. This is show me a success measure that I've done it. That's number 2. So we did a data attribute here. So data attribute, very similar approach. And then to wrap it up and show, I don't want to say most complex, but something that you see most often is, I usually, personally, I don't want to have that temporary hidden element on a page because it's just adding a complexity of one more element that no one would know in 3 months what it is for, right? So how can I achieve the same by passing the value that I want to delete, but without having an element on a page? So jumping into details, I'm 2 minutes away from the time. Perfect. There's a difference how I'm triggering it. So again, I have an ID, which I made plain text this time, but now I'm doing something else just to make it a little bit more complex. So what I'm doing here is I'm using not the link attribute because my element, my ID is not the link. I'm using a button markup, right? So that's action. So shutting that down. So I just copied and pasted everything that you've seen, and then I added on click, and then I'm using Apex event trigger. I'm saying, okay, we trigger on a document level, and then I want to execute my delete amp function, my JavaScript dynamic action, that's the name of it, and then I'm passing in multiple values here. If you need to pass more than one value, usually this will be the way to go. You don't have to write it, you don't have to take screenshots. You'll have this app if you need it available for download. All good. So I'm triggering a particular element. So once again, so I'm triggering this action, which is going to be custom action, and then I'm passing value into it, and the value I'm passing again using hash ID. So in this example, I'm just hard coding action, which is rejecting, and then I'm saying I'm passing my value ID, which is going to be my emp now again here. And to see my custom defined dynamic action, I gave it a name, and this is the name that needs to map to that call. I'm listening on a document level. I probably didn't have to specify this at all because it's by default listening to document level. if we go back to that DOM structure, the tree that I've showed you, so the further you go down into the tree, you can listen for these events higher up. That's called bubbling. So your event can bubble up. And what I did here is we are listening on the highest level. There's one level high, which is window, but at this point I don't want to go into it, just document for now. And that's the highest level of my HTML document, right, in the DOM. And I'm listening on it where something is going to call and say delete emp. So I'm going to listen for this event. What's going to happen is confirm, do you want to continue? That's fine. And then I have execute JavaScript. Why do I have this now? And how do I get the data? These two lines are getting the data. So this data ID is fetching that number, and this data action is getting that rejected string that I passed in. Once I have this here, all I'm doing is running a PL SQL process, passing these two values, doing same stuff, but I now do everything manually. So I refresh my region here, I set the message to success, and I close the spinning wheel and come out. Perfect. So that was the third way. And if I show you a delete is again, that's my process being called. It is exactly the same as before. Like that's the PL SQL that we were running all the time. There's no in between page number element, and that how I made it work. If I go back to my slides, so we've seen attribute of a link, so an ID we can use, or something like usually an ID, it will be the one that you're going to go for. We can do date attributes. These are custom ones that you can name any way you want. You can do as many as you want. Probably won't go too wild with it, so the better option if you need more elements or more values to pass in is going to be Apex event trigger. Just Google for API documentation. It's easy to use, so you can't go wrong with it. To touch base on bad practices.
I'm very sorry.
Yep.
Time is over now. Sorry.
No worries. I mean, slides are available just to show you some bad practices. You can check them out later on as you go, and pretty much if you have any questions, I'm happy to have a look at them.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very good session to go deep inside. If you guys have any feedback for Lino, you can put it in the question section, and we will give it to you, Lino, afterwards, so you can maybe give a little insight how the session was for the attendees. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.